Nation. Thanks for tuning in last week when we had an awesome time talking to Ian Clugston, owner of Amity Irons Tattoo Studio in New York. This week we have touring photographer Gavin Smith talking to us about his business Front Row Productions. Over the last 10 years that I've known him, he's been putting in the graft across the world with Don Broco, 4 Years Strong, Paris, Glorious Sons and Broadside, just to name a few. Despite all of Gav's success, he is such a humble person, which myself and Pricey both admire. Please enjoy the show.
Gav Smith, welcome to Progression Over Destination. This is podcast number 3?
4.
4 already.
Only 4, isn't
Look at us, ploughing through them. It's like EastEnders. So, as usual, we get everyone to state your name and your favourite beige snack. So, carry on, Gav.
And also what you do, so your name.
Oh, yeah, your occupation as well.
Just like what food you're into. That'll be fine.
Yeah, food.
I'm Gavin Smith. I'm a photographer, which feels weird to say because I always feel obnoxious when I say what I do. And my favourite beige snack. Custard cream, I think. Is that class as beige?
Yeah, that's beige.
Yeah, beige is whatever you want.
So
that's good for a custard cream.
That's a good shout, man.
Bloody love a custard cream.
Cool. So, how did you start becoming a photographer? Did you get any funding or help from anyone to buy your equipment, or do you just went ahead and did it yourself?
Did everything when I was growing up, my dad was he had a full-time job, and his hobby was photography, and he had he ran a studio and would do sort of lifestyle stuff, nothing too crazy. And then it always interested me, and I would do they bought me a camera and things like that. And then as I grew up, I kind of drifted out of it, as you do. But it was always there in the background. It was always something I was interested in. And then, when you turn into a teenager and, you want to be in a band, but you have no musical skills of any kind.
Did you ever get into a band?
Never did. The discussions were always there of we've got a name and you could play bass and all that kind of stuff. But it never.
Hey, what's wrong with playing bass? I play bass.
It was just that kind of thing of I'd love to be in a band, and someone was I could do this, I could sing, and it never progressed any further than that.
Sounds about right.
But then I was just I want to be involved in music in some way, and I was this is the way to do it. This is the route to take, just kind of the behind the scenes kind of thing.
It's class.
I think that's probably because I wanted to be. I loved the idea of it, the whole the lifestyle as it.
What
it's
lifestyle?
Just this weird kind of thing, just the band lifestyle, the doing shows and the touring and all sorts of things like that. I was this is great. This is what I want to do, but I can't do anything. So it took the backdoor route through it, and I was I'll do the behind the scenes stuff. I'll sell your merch. I'll tour manage you, whatever, anything. And just kind of slowly went from there, really.
Have you ever said to someone, I can stand at the back and play trampoline for you?
Just anything. When I used to live in Manchester, and I would do some stuff with a band there, and would always find some way of shoehorn it. And I was I'll get up and I'll just do this kind of screaming bit on stage with you and that kind of stuff. But would always kind of find a way to get involved. But then life and being an adult comes at you pretty quick, and you just go, I can't do this shit. I can't,
So me and you Gav met how many years ago? How did we meet?
Jesus. I'd say it was when I was working at the studio.
With Chris.
Working at the studio. Yeah.
Today's been cool. I found I've been clearing out some stuff, and I found some old drawings. This is how I met Chris, and I think this is the link between the three of us, actually.
Go on.
Oh, you've brought it. You got it.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's
These
disappeared.
are,
I can't see it. Oh,
Is
there
it?
it is. Yeah,
I think this is it, isn't it?
I remember that.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so this, for everyone that's not listening, listening and obviously can't see, these are original drawings that I was asked to
Wow.
do some artwork for Jack's band before I even met Jack.
What we'll do with those images that Pricey's just put up on the screen, I will pop them on our YouTube video, and they'll also be on our website as well within the show notes.
Do you think that being able to physically build things helps your business, Gav? And do you ever pay tradesmen with your trade for other trades?
So tattoos, I'll take a picture of you doing tattoo.
Interesting.
I'll give you a picture of my tattoo type of thing.
I
That
had
made no sense, but you know what I mean?
No, I know. I'm with you. Like the work that I do, I've never had to like physically build something. I've only now, like in the last couple of weeks, built a website. If that kind of counts, but I don't think it really counts. But I have, in the past, I've utilized a friend to help me film something, who is also a tattooist, and I was like, hey, I've got this interview I need to film. Any chance you could come and just like help out with it? Because I thought I'll be going on my own. And he was like, yeah, that's fine. But I'm free that day if you want to come in and get tattooed beforehand, because I need someone to tattoo on. And I was like, that sounds like a done deal to me. I'm not going to argue with that.
Boom. Trade.
But that was
That's a straight
like-
up trade.
That's a full on tit for tat kind of deal.
Mm.
But there was no,
So you give him tit and he give you tat.
always. That's how I get all my work. It's funny,
Did
man.
you used to work
I'm an
in
adult.
the cinema?
I
You used to
did,
work in
yeah.
the cinema, didn't you?
Yeah, man.
With Dean, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Was it Dean?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, we've got another link then. So Jack,
Yo.
Gav used to work in the cinema
No way.
with Dean. And do you remember Dean that we met in New York? Dean Holden.
Yeah. Ginger
That's the
Dean.
weirdest thing.
Yeah.
Didn't we
So-
send a picture to you, Gav, from Dean's
You
phone?
did. Yeah.
Do you still have that?
I don't know. Let me see if I can find it.
God, no.
Sorry, not
way.
getting it to Facebook or something, isn't it?
How
On
did
the
you
Facebook
send it
chat.
to me? Yeah, I feel like it
Instagram.
was.
By a carrier pigeon. How do you feel about people in photography that are good at what they do? And are you ever checking their social media and thinking you're not doing as well as them?
Oh, almost on a daily. It's
Okay.
the danger of social media is like I look at other people's work, like people I'm friends with or like people I kind of just admire their work, and I'm always comparing. And I'm like, oh, there's no way I'm as good as that. There's no way I'm kind of like that, because it's that thing of like I know who I am, so I look at the work and I know that like I'm just a guy who does it like this, and I don't see myself as like professional as other people or something like that. I just kind of
Yeah.
there's a barrier in kind of like how I see myself and how I work, and then I look at other people and go, they're professionals, they're doing it at a different degree to me.
Do you feel as though you're just like I always say I'm winging it, but
Oh,
like
100%.
see, now that's crazy, because I see you like on Instagram, like touring with like the Glorious Sons, and I've seen you work with Paris, and I've known you work with 4 Years Strong, and like if that's your mentality of winging it, then like that is one hell of a wing it. Like, that is insane.
It's very bizarre. Like only, like I said, kind of like in my intro, when people ask what I do, for the longest time, I was like, oh, I hate saying what I do because I sound really obnoxious. It sounds really just kind of like big-headed. Like, oh, what do you do? It's like, oh, I'm a touring photographer. I felt really like, and like just really smug for no, like, and they're going to go, this guy, what a dick. Like, there was no basis in like,
straight edge as well.
yeah. Like, it just gets worse. But there was just this level of like, there's no, like, I don't know, just kind of the assumption, I guess, that like, oh, what do you do for work? And it just sounded really kind of like, well, whatever it is better than what you're doing. Like, it just kind of felt like that's how I was.
But if I'm honest, Gav, every time that I meet you, I never ever think that you're pretentious. You never carry yourself in a way of being like that. You're not in the slightest.
That's
that
kind of
person.
my fear. Is like I leave a conversation and people just go, "Ah, who is that guy?" Like,
Dude, man,
do you know what I mean?
what was?
Like, what a dick.
I was thinking last night of how long I've known you for, and I think I'm 30 now in July. I met you when I was 17.
No
it would be,
way.
Yeah. 17, 18
That's
is when we came to
horrifying.
record the EP somewhere. What was the EP's name? I can't even remember.
That's
that
upsetting.
absolute trash.
Was that a Windhouse EP? Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I can't remember what it was called, but we basically ripped Take to the Skies Enter Shikari's album cover.
Who didn't at that stage?
I know, yeah. Yeah, and I just remember you, Gab, sat in the back of the studio, like typing away for alt press. I think alt
Like
sound,
a little troll in the back corner.
Yeah.
I think when I met you, I think you were doing you were just starting the video side of things, and you like developed a green screen room.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
was,
yeah.
That was that feels like lifetimes ago at this point. And like I was thinking about it, but like that to me was my connection to both of you. Like separately, but also kind of like that's how I know, like that was my involvement. Like I just moved back from Manchester and I was just like, this is what I want to do. Let's find a way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah, that
was
feels
good fun.
You were with us when we recorded the Way the Deal stuff, weren't you?
Yeah, I was there for that.
Did you come to Mujibs with us for an Indian?
I probably would have done.
What's the
like a midday Indian?
what's the place down in the bay that Chris used to take every band for lunch?
Yeah,
Mujibs.
there.
It was
That's
an Indian restaurant.
There or Eli Jenkins. They were the two places.
Eli Jenkins.
Yeah,
He took
Mujibs
us.
was like
We weren't good enough for,
like,
for Mujibs.
some band put it on one of their songs, didn't they? That they were like, they put it at the end when they says, "Kid Keep Dancing," put it at the end of one of their songs.
Oh God,
But
Yeah, I
keep
think so.
dancing.
that's wild.
We should get one of them on. That'd be bloody hilarious.
Oh, wow.
So obviously we know you through different things of,
Yeah.
I don't know, through different people and collaborating with other people in certain ways. Like musically, we've known you, which now that doesn't even exist in life at all. Would you collaborate with anyone?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. Like the idea, like I love doing what I do. Like the ability, like this sounds really kind of obnoxious now, but like the ability to kind of like capture a moment of a show and things like that. Like it's amazing. But like I always want to do other things. Like I enjoy doing like portrait work, and I've reached out to a couple of people to kind of just do like lifestyle stuff, some portrait stuff. But I would photograph anything for anyone. Like the idea, it's the creative process that I enjoy. Like
sometimes that gets lost when you do it so much as a trade. You forget that.
Yeah.
To look at it for fun and creativity as opposed to money.
I went through all my photos from a couple of years ago for something I was doing recently. And I went through and I was looking back and I was like, oh, these aren't as bad as I thought they were. And it just kind of looked through and I enjoyed looking back at the work. And I was just like, man, this venue was great. I remember this day. And it was just that kind of the ability to kind of enjoy it again after kind of ignoring it, and the work is done, move on to the next project. But it was nice to just sort of take a step away from it and just enjoy the work I had done again. That was nice. It was like, it's not something I would usually do as well.
Yeah. Is that something you were doing because of the isolation, or is there anything that you're working on in isolation because you're in isolation, like going back through old photographs?
It's because of the current isolation, because I can't go anywhere. I can't take any photos. Well, I've seen there's some things that other photographers are doing, which I love the idea, but now I can't do it because it would look like I'm ripping them off.
Is it 10 photography hacks to do in isolation?
Oh God, I might do one of those videos. But it's people are doing like doorstep photo shoots and things like that, where like you're keeping yourself the distance apart. You're not interacting with them like you would normally.
Yeah.
But it's like one of the things about the isolation I'm enjoying in this really kind of voyeuristic way is I know what people's houses look like now, and that's really interesting. Just sort of knowing how certain kind of these unobtainable people that you know, like newscasters and Jimmy Fallon and all these kind of people, you're like, I know what their house looks like now, and they're normal. Yeah. It's kind of normalized all these people who you think are, you know, super uber celebs or whatever, and you're like, yeah, and you're like, oh, they're decorating their house similar to how mine is, or you know,
yeah,
okay, I don't.
There's that between in it.
Yeah, it's not. It's like it's an interesting way that it's kind of it's humanized everybody to a point. Like there was a point where, not to take it down this route, like a couple of months ago, everybody hated everybody globally. Yeah. But this kind of thing has kind of brought everybody together. But it's also made everybody very human. And it's nice to see that some people, like to bring it back to photography, there's a way that some people have used that to kind of humanize people and show them in their like most, not vulnerable, but most kind of like natural habitat, which is their home.
Yeah.
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 But then like, I was like, man, that's such a good idea, but I don't want to, that's their thing. I don't want to kind of copy that. So I took a different route, and I'm creating a photo book of sorts of kind of past works. So I've gone back through and I've looked at everything I've done in the past and, you know, dragged it all off my hard drives and everything else. But it was just nice to take a moment and just sit and just be able to enjoy my work and just kind of look at it with fresh eyes. Like
skin your glory.
just bathe.
What you need to do, Gav, is print out all of your photos and just take all of your clothes off and roll around them on the floor.
That's what I do anyway, but with a hard drive.
Oh yeah.
I'm definitely going to Photoshop your face into Scrooge McDuck and change it to all of your photograph. Right, this next question is always a good one. It's always a favourite of everyone's. So Jack, you can ask this one.
Yeah, like I've known you for a long time, and that's the way that you know, the way that you just generally are. You're such a nice person that like you wouldn't say boo to a goose, as far as I'm aware. Like the motto and mantra that you live by, it's got to be something super cool.
Oh man,
it has to be.
No pressure, Gav.
No pressure.
No pressure at all. I don't know, man. Like a mantra. There's something like one of my very first tattoos that I ever got, and I was like, I'm so edgy. I'm so kind of cool doing this. I got the word hope on my arm, and I hate it now looking at it.
Yeah.
But it was always kind of like, no matter what the situation is, you've always got to have hope. And that was kind of like the reason for getting it. But I wouldn't say it's like my mantra, but like the mentality still sits in that, like when you're kind of starting out, even to a point now, you try and find work and you try and kind of reach a new client and you just send off email after email and nothing ever comes back. Yeah. But you've always got to, before you hit send, you're just going to be like, hey, they might reply, boom, and send. Like it's the idea of like,
there's always that 1% chance that they'll.
Dude, I had some stuff, like some crazy things have happened to me, were like in email conversations with things that I never expected. And it's just like the idea that they emailed back and there was a dialogue in the first place was wild. But the idea that like, you know, if you don't have that hope that someone's going to reply and someone's going to go, oh yeah, let's have a conversation. I'd say because it is tattooed on me, I'll show you, because you can see on the thing, it's this obnoxious one right there. Hideous.
Oh, look damn.
At that. Awful.
It's not awful, is it? You could probably do something with it if you ever needed to, but I think it's nice.
But like that's one of the ones I had the longest. And I think the idea, it's still sits solid with me. I have another one that says "Who cares?" but I feel like that's that's a different side of me. But I think it's that. Like you've always like
Brilliant.
It sounds really kind of like, I don't know. It sounds really cheesy. I think when you say it out loud, like you've always got to have hope. Like I imagine it in like some kind of trailer with a Coldplay instrumental in the background. But it's just kind of like you've always got to have hope. But it's true. Like it's with anything. Like I could never, like especially in this current world that we live in, I could never get booked for any work ever again. Like the landscape of live shows and that kind of like human interaction could completely change to how we know it.
Dissipate.
And I could never get booked again. You just got to hope that, you know, things go back to normal and we're able to kind of continue as we were. So I'd say that it's always like, you've got to have hope no matter what it is. An email you're sending, you know, a job.
I guess it also comes down to like, if you don't send it, you'll never know. So like if you don't put yourself out there,
exactly.
You know, if you don't put yourself out there to send that email,
the ratio of like replies to non-replies is very outbalanced. But if you don't,
maybe we should do an infographic of that.
Yeah, like some of the work I have now is because I sent off an email one time to someone and they responded, and like that's literally like the work I got. The work I got through Paris is because I reached out to their manager, who at the time was singing in another band that I was a fan of. So I reached out to him. I was like, "Can I come along? I'll film the show. I'll do some photos." And then he then was like, "Hey," built up a friendship. "Hey, we've got this other artist that I'm working with," and that was it. And that was all it took, was that kind of like. That one shot of just kind of speaking to someone. It's crazy.
It's cool. Like, I'm going to skip the next question just for a second. I'm going to come back to it because it's obvious. But with talking about what you're talking about, have you ever felt that you feel overwhelmed with the way that your business runs? So the emails that you get back and forth with people, or do you feel like you're overwhelmed with like your customers' needs, or in your case, your band's needs, or whatever it is that you need for your like photography stuff to run?
Absolutely. I still like, even now, I still kind of feel that like I feel like I could be doing more, or maybe I'm not offering enough, or because like, especially in most industries, but in mine especially, everyone's a photographer. You always seem to meet someone everyone owns a camera. Everyone's got a buddy who takes photos. It's always there. And I always worry that like maybe I'm not offering enough, or maybe I could be better, or all these kind of things. I always do think that like I could always improve on what I do to kind of give.
That's a good mindset to have, though. If you didn't have that mindset, I'd be worried about your business.
But this is like, the idea that like I never look at something I do and go, "That's it, that's the one." Like like on a tour I was on recently, I was like, "These are the best photos I've taken. This is the happiest I am with this current work." And they went, "You say that like every week." So like, which made me realize that like I do look at work and go, "That is it. This is the best. This is the best I could be." And then like the following day, I'm like, "This is it. These are the best ones." And it's just.
Do you think that's part of your progression as well? Is like you constantly looking at yourself and just moving, just like, "Oh, actually, I'm better than yesterday. I'm completely better than yesterday."
Oh yeah, fully. Like I never like. I'm always very I'm not very confident in myself. Let's get deep. I'm not very confident in like who I am and my abilities. And I always kind of, going back to the thing earlier on of like other photographers, I always look at myself and their work and my work, and I'm like, I'm not as good as that. I've got to be as good as that. So I never feel like I'm good enough.
Yeah.
So I'm always trying to get to the level of like, this is it. This is where I'm happy with. And in my mind and the way I look at my work, I don't feel like I'm there yet. I feel I could always improve. There's always like that next step I could be better than I was yesterday. I could, like the tour I did in January, I could be better than that. Like I always feel like there's a step I could be doing to better what I'm doing now, constantly.
Yeah. That's good though, man. That's really good to hear that you're constantly striving to become better. So there's like a double-edged sword. Like you can like look at it and be like, oh, I'm so doubtful of myself because I'll never be good as that. But I want to be good, so I'm going to keep trying.
Yeah, I always feel that like.
So
I think it's the thing of like.
Yeah.
I've heard people say it before, which is like, if you're not enjoying it, you're not doing it for the right reasons, and that's kind of.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that kind of like you see it with bands. They go out, they phone in the performance, and then they kind of pack it all up and they do it again tomorrow, and you can see that they're not enjoying it or their heart's not in it. And it's just kind of like you're not doing it for the reason you wanted to do it. So you need to change that, make it so you enjoy it again. And that's kind of, I'm very lucky, and it's always apparent to me, like how lucky I am to be in the situation I'm in. So I don't take it for granted. I'm always trying to better myself. Just like, I had some like video editing of like a couple of years ago. And like the client was like, do you mind if I sit in and watch you do it and we can like bounce ideas around? And I was like, yes, that would be the best thing. Best thing ever.
Amazing.
Which is like, in most work, you want the client 10,000 miles away. You don't want them anywhere near it. But the idea that I could work on a project with them that I knew at the end of it, they were 100% happy with, because then I'm seeing it differently to how they would see it and how they want it. And kind of like we'd pitch up in a venue, get the laptop open, and they'd be like, right, let's have a look. Let's go. And I like that I would enjoy, because you get, you get a different insight into it, I guess, that you like different set of eyes, but I enjoyed that. That's a good way of doing it.
Music.
Yes.
Gav, how does that inspire you, and like what sort of music? Because your music is quite eclectic. Like what's the music that most inspires you? What gets you like motivated to focus if you're sat down editing it in the Lightroom or whatever you photo in Affinity, whatever you edit, what do you put on?
I always like, I have, if there's like a new album or something, I'm always kind of like down to listen to that or something. But like my go-tos, if I'm editing, I found that my go-tos are either John Mayer or Black Bear. They're my two kind of like, I'm editing, I'm not really kind of doing anything else. And they're like the two artists I always find, for whatever reason, that I go back to. And I always kind of like, I'll put that on and edit to those. Any
particular song of either of them?
Not a particular song, but like, I'd say, well, yeah, maybe. No, albums, I'd say. With John Mayer, it's Continuum, because I think that album's incredible. And that's my go-to for him. In terms of like, it's almost like, man, saying it's background music sounds really offensive, but it's not like it's like lift music. It's more like I know the songs so much that I'm not listening to the songs. The songs are more kind of just a sound of what's happening. It's like white noise almost, which again sounds really offensive.
Yeah.
A comfort zone sort of like environment.
Your flow state track. Yeah. Your flow state album. I would probably say Like Pacific is probably mine. Like I have that on so much, like you wouldn't believe. I've had Clutch on since the last podcast.
I've not had any music on this week at all, which is horrific.
That's probably why you feel so crap. Chuck some music
I think actually I did put, I had to go and pick some stuff up in the van, and I put Tom Jenkins's new album on actually.
Oh, so good.
It's really, we'll give a little shout out to Tom, who's an absolute farming hero. Welsh farming hero, singer, songwriter. Yeah, he's class. Tom's awesome. We all know Tom as well, actually, don't we? We all know Tom.
Do I know Tom?
Have you know?
Tom Jenkins used to be in Set Mike.
Yes. Oh my God.
Yeah.
A lot of names coming out of the woodwork.
straight lines.
Straight lines, yes. Yeah. So Tom's album is out at the minute, and I think he released a single this week. So I have been listening to that on Apple Play.
I just wrote that down now.
Yeah, it's really good.
Have a listen. It's lovely.
Oh, I will.
What do you do to wind down then, Gav? You mentioned your dog earlier on.
It depends, because like if I'm in a work environment, I'd say that like I'm, especially on a tour, I'm always the last one. Well, it depends on the night. I'm always the last one awake working.
Yeah.
For the most part, I think. And like my wind down, I'd say afterwards is because like I found like okay, so I found that like when I'm on tour and I'm editing and I'm working, my mind is very active because I'm like, you're staring at a computer, you're thinking, you're not kind of like chilling out. So I'm always like,
yeah,
I go to bed pretty wired. So like I climb in my bunk and I'm just kind of like, right, I'm pretty awake right now. So there's a I watch a lot of YouTube, not in a dangerous levels, but like I have particular shows that I watch that I put on, and it takes me away from like being on tour, I guess, being like working. It makes me feel like I'm back at home. It's like my normal kind of routine that I would do. And I listen to some podcasts as well, just because it depends on, like, I can't go to bed listening to music. That's the weirdest thing, because you hear it all day. The last thing you want to do then is go and listen to more of it.
Yeah. I don't think I would do that.
Yeah. Sounds like a normal thing to be thinking.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of, like, I listen to music a lot, but like I think when it's time to like, I need to like kind of turn my mind off, I need to relax, the last thing I do is go, let's put on a band. Because it just feels, it's
I
like
think
going to
I think
work
the first thing I want to do when I go to bed is putting Parkway Drive on, just as I'm drifting off.
Really, puts me in the right frame of mind.
First album. Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say like I try and be like a normal person. When I'm at home, I'm not. I tend to not. When I'm at home, it means I'm not working. So I have a routine that I kind of run through. That's very normal. But I think when it's in terms of like winding down, I always have like the greatest intentions ever of like, I'm going to get into my bunk, I'm going to watch a movie, this is how I'm going to chill out. And you get in and you put on 5 minutes of it and you're dead to the world. So it's like, it's always things that I don't necessarily, it's short form content or something I know I can dip in and out of. Like there's a couple podcasts.
What is your short form content on YouTube that you go to watch? You say you watch quite a bit on there. Like
without a doubt, my every day, my go-to is Good Mythical Morning, which is, if you don't,
I've heard a lot about this.
It's brilliant. It's like it's like a kind of morning, kind of like TV breakfast show and like a late night talk show kind of vibe, where it's these two guys who have been friends since like second grade or something ridiculous. And they're still friends now, and they work together, they form this, and the content is it's very entertaining. It's kind of eating things or challenges and games and things like that, but it's very like, the relationship between the two of them is great. They have a podcast as well, which I listen to, but it's just good. It's like I'd say maybe half an hour's worth of content a day, but it's just very like, it's so far removed from anything I'm doing. It's very enjoyable. They'll do like a Willet and a Willet burrito, and they do different ingredients to see it kind of like what kind of food works on a burrito level. Just like, it's very kind of,
what food doesn't work on a burrito level?
Pig's blood. That's the kind of degree of where they go with it. To me, growing up, it's got very kind of more like Saturday morning, kind of almost like Dick and Dom vibes, as to kind of like
Wonky Donkey.
Kinda. It's that kind of like
SMTV Live.
It's that kind of like, they're taking themselves seriously, but also they know that they're not. It's that kind of thing. It's good. It's that like.
That's kind of like me and Pricey. Yeah. It's kind of like me and you.
Take yourself seriously, but ultimately you know that you're not.
Yeah, we're definitely not.
Definitely.
Gav, you do a lot of touring. Obviously, at the minute, it's massively affected. Whereas, like, I've not asked this before, but like, obviously, your business is completely different to what we've actually had. It's a traveling business. So,
Yeah,
I'd like to ask, like, where you have been before, like, what parts of the planet you've been with your job and how lucky you've been to do it, and like, where do you want to go next? Where's like a place that you could think of that you think definitely want to photograph that stage? Or
there's a couple, like, in terms of like iconic stages and things, like I'd love to do Red Rocks, because that's like visually, it's just this kind of like, there's not a venue like it. It's so unique. I'd say that's definitely one I would love to do.
Where's that?
I don't know where it is. That sounds really bad, doesn't it?
what is it again?
You don't know where
I don't know where it is. It's in Colorado.
So, like, Australia, have you done Australia yet?
I've not done. There's two places I would love to do, and that's Australia and Japan.
Amazing.
They're two places I've not had a chance to go to, but they're two places that, like, on my bucket list of places to go. They're two that I would 100% want to tick off.
If you're listening to this and you don't know Gav is about 6 foot. 6'5"?
I'm like 6'1".
So going to Japan. Go to Japan, you'd stand out like a sore thumb.
Like,
be hilarious.
I don't know. Yeah, I only know short people who have been to Japan.
I know short people that have been to Japan. Should be the title of this episode.
Oh yeah, we always forget what's the name of the episode.
I only know short people.
That's it. That's it. It's the name of the episode.
Brilliant. Obviously, because of the situation as well, it's very uncertain for you at this particular time. If COVID wasn't in place, where would you see your business in a year's time? Would you still see yourself touring in a year's time? Do you see yourself settling down and being in Cardiff more, or what?
Still touring. The plan, like, I have plans up until the end of the year to tour, and then it's very much like it's still kind of where I want to keep going. Like the work, where basically the band that I work with, like the most mainly.
Amazing.
The Glorious Sons are currently on an album cycle. So that came out in September. So that'll go without circumstances non-permitting. We would still be on tour now, and we'd be going sort of into the rest of the year with festivals and smaller shows and things like that. And then that would go sort of into next year, but not so much. But then I have other artists that I work with kind of powering up cycles again, and like they're putting out albums, so then you kind of keep going. You pick up one, kind of seems to finish, and luckily enough another one is kind of starting up, so you can kind of jump from one to the other kind of thing.
Yeah. So I noticed that I noticed like Fontaines DC and stuff, they've like reschedule shows already without even knowing when this lockdown is going to be lifted. I bet your bands that you're working with done exactly the same sort of thing.
No one's rescheduled anything yet for any of the things that I'm on, which is, it's a shame, but it's also understandable, because you don't want to, I don't know, you reschedule it for August or September or whatever, and then you find out that it's got to be cancelled and moved again. So I think we're just, for now, everyone's just kind of
just waiting, hassle, isn't it?
But also, like, financially, it's like you can't just keep chopping and changing. There's costs involved, and like, venue hire and promotion and things like that. I think everyone's just kind of staying off until they know for certain when or not they can, start up again. It's weird. It's just so weird.
So have you got anything like in the pipeline over the next few months that you're going to be doing, like to keep yourself busy because of the situation, or is it just like flat re-editing some old stuff and like what we talked about earlier?
It's kind of like I had like being at home and being off work, like this kind of downtime is very normal. I was saying to Jack before we started, like what I'm doing now is what I would do off tour anyway. Like I'd be kind of watching movies, playing games, walking a dog, just kind of like normal human being stuff.
Yeah, we were saying how it does actually feel quite normal, doesn't it?
Like,
because
there's other elements that
Yeah.
make my life very normal. You go to the movies, you go, meet people, but like everything that I'm doing in my like day to day is very much what I would do off tour. I've spoken to a couple of friends who are in the same situation, and they're saying the same thing. They're like, "This is what I would be doing if I had no shows. I'd be doing the same thing." And it's like, so to that degree, it's normal. But then you keep getting the emails and you keep getting the updates. Oh, this event was cancelled now. Oh, these shows have now been pulled. And there's no kind of step forward for it. But it's, like there's a couple of things that have been kind of like Slam Dunk was cancelled and, well, it was rescheduled. But again, like that's for September. There's like Reading and Leeds as well, which are like, there's a lot of things that are kind of up in the air so basically I'm not holding out a lot of hope for anything for the next like couple months.
Are you working Reading and Leeds? Well, if it comes off, are you going to be working Reading and Leeds?
I don't think I was this year. I don't think I had anything. I was.
Well, if you weren't, you definitely aren't now.
Yeah, it's this weird thing of like I was doing Slam Dunk, but now that's kind of moved, but then I think the rescheduled dates, as far as I know, are going ahead, but then I don't know if they're clashing with anything else, if anything else gets rescheduled. All these kind of like, it's just very up in the air. It's very bizarre. Like, we were on tour when it kind of was all at the peak, and like we had to like pack up and go home. That was it. We had like 2.5 weeks left.
Where were you?
I was in Canada. We just finished, like we did like 2.5 months in the US, and then it was like a month in Canada, like consecutively. So we'd done the US, like literally state to state, coast to coast, back like up into Canada. And then while we were in Calgary, one of the guys didn't feel so good. The venue was kind of unsure about the situation. And then the decision was made. That's it. Everyone's got to go home. Like the higher ups kind of made a decision, and it was really bizarre because you're loading in, and like the stage, like the local hands are kind of setting up the stage, like people, the crew are kind of setting everything ready for the show, and then they go right.
And these aren't small shows.
No, they're like big, kind of like Academy 1+ kind of rooms.
What's that? 2000?
Yeah. Like 2000, like it kind of varied, but like into Canada, they're a Canadian band, so they have a bigger pull in Canada.
Yeah.
So they were like like ice hockey arenas, which kind of convert into venues, that kind of thing.
Oh my God, that
so
sounds
it's like
incredible.
2,000 plus people, and then before sound check has even happened, the show is pulled. And then you have to pack everything down, put it back onto the trailers, put it back on the truck, load out. And then the decision was made that everyone has to go home until further notice. So people flew back to Toronto. I flew back home. Everyone scattered. And then it all kind of like hit the peak it was at. But it was this weirdest, as we were loading out, a snowstorm happened, and we were like, this is the weird, it's like a post-apocalyptic. It was really bizarre. Like everything was silent. And the mood was very strange. It was just the weirdest situation to be in. And like everyone was just like, I don't really know what to do. There's nothing prepares you for this situation. Like you've never been in this kind of situation before.
I guess that's a moment you'll never forget.
No, it was so, like after the incident at the Bataclan in Paris a few years ago, it changed how security was handled at shows, and that was always something that was always apparent. Security meetings were kind of a lot stricter. The depth in which people would go into was a lot kind of more intense, to the point where like you'd be at a security meeting normally, and it's just like, this is so and so, he's in charge of security. I'll have someone on the door. This is how we run the ship. And then after that, the security meetings changed to the point of, if anything happens, we grab you and take you, you go. You leave the stage, you go. If we tell you to go, you move. The music stops you. And it was just like this weird, it made it very real. Like all these things happen over the world and you just kind of witness them in some way through the news or whatever. But this always kind of made it very real. And this was kind of the same thing. It just didn't feel, it's something on the news. It's something you see. They're making fun of Donald Trump. It's on the news. That's kind of the late night talk shows, and that's kind of what it is. But then it made it very real.
It's never going to hit you.
Like, it's like we've been to the States, we passed it all by, and now we're up in Canada. But then it just kind of got worse and worse, and it just kind of became very real. It was very bizarre. Like the airport was empty on the way home. The flight was empty. It was just the weirdest couple days, and it's the hardest thing to adjust. And then you come home and they're like, hey, you can't do what you would normally do, and you're like, okay, yeah, it's bizarre.
Yes, it's quite sobering to realize what you have got as a job.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? Like you go away and you've got all this freedom and all this, like, you know, just you go to, as you're setting up that day, you visit a new town, you explore, you see a new place to eat. And like from that point of view, you know, you come home and you relax at home, and you don't actually do that stuff. So you're kind of used to this bit. But it would probably get to a point where your feet are going to be fucking ridiculously itchy, right?
Oh, I've got like crazy cabin fever. Like it's the weirdest thing because normally I'd be like, I know that in 2 weeks I've got travel plans and I'm off again and I got work coming up. But it's April now. Like and I don't know when the next kind of thing is happening. It's just like, will it ever happen again? It's the weirdest. Like we were talking about it on that day, and we were like, our industry as we know it is dead. There's nothing happening. No one's booking shows. No one's announcing tours. It's done. It's weird.
I think it's kind of dead, but I'm also really excited to see what is going on behind closed doors. I'm excited to see what people have been writing. I'm really excited to see that. Like, I did see Dave Grohl put out a stay-at-home post, and he said the vans are ready, they're loaded, we've got a new album. Stay in your fucking house as much as you can, and we'll be out as quick as we can to sort you out and give you what you need. And I think that was that. Like Dave Grohl just does everything right for me, but everything that he does on the internet is incredible.
Yeah,
and like I can imagine, like he's got a recording studio in his house, so he's not the only person that's done it. Like Goldfinger released like a video this week of all of them playing.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Home studio. That was incredible, and I think it give it another month, and everyone in these like bands and stuff are probably going to start copying these sorts of behaviors or adjusting them and modifying them and evolving them to keep people, like their audiences, arriving. And we've also got that, like, people are going to start to get like picked up as well from sat on the internet, like virally. Like Honey Fungus is a local band for us. They've been playing to like 40,000 people online recently, and they're just they're not just a covers band. They're a covers band, you know, like, but they're incredible at what they do. And it's a husband and wife. So they're putting their kids to the side for like 5 minutes, whoever, just doing a song. And then
that's Badger.
But Badger plays drums, so Badger won't be obviously with them at this particular point. But John and this, I don't know his name. I've seen him once or twice.
That's mad.
That's the thing. It's like it's a different outlet that, like, you wouldn't necessarily have. Like, loads of people are doing like Instagram Live now, and kind of utilizing this audience that they have, like a dedicated fan base that they have that isn't going anywhere, isn't doing anything, and they're doing performances. They're doing like Facebook Live, going on like, and they're using this opportunity. They're using a platform that they wouldn't have utilized in this way before, and it's kind of talking to some friends. They've got an album coming out, and they would have been touring in promotion of it, but that's not happening now, and they're now kind of thinking of ways in which they can adjust what they're doing to kind of get the most out of like that first kind of week of release. And it's like, it's a world that you don't you never thought you'd have to think about how to like promote an album without doing a show. And it's this weird kind of thing of having to adjust, but people are, like you were saying, like, you've got a studio in your house, you've got the ability to make music. Why would you not use this time at home to write something new, put out a cover? Like, it's crazy that the amount of the amount of people who are just utilizing this time and using it to continue to be creative is amazing.
Yeah, I think Broco did, even before all this isolation shit went down, they were just releasing random tracks, weren't they?
Yeah, they had like, I spoke to them about it, and they said that like, just do it in the way that like hip hop does it. You have a track ready, just put the track out. Like, why wait for an EP release? Why wait for an album drop? If the song's ready, just put the song out, which is brilliant.
Yeah. I think that's a really good way of doing it.
Yeah.
Gav, are there any personal life-changing moments you feel have defined you? If you do not prefer to air what has happened, that's totally understandable. So state yes, and if so, what did you take from that situation to progress further in yourself and to get to your current destination as a tour photographer?
It's definitely yes. There's a lot of things that like, there's a lot of things that kind of like change me as a person. And there's a lot of things that kind of through that, then it kind of pushes you to be better at what you do, to enjoy what you do. Like the big one that always kind of comes up, like you mentioned it earlier on about me being straight edge. That kind of stemmed from the cliched, you know, I had that awful kind of breakup situation. And I was like, I need to change who I am. I need to better myself as a person. And it kind of, that stemmed from that kind of like that. And that, it's always a thing. Like I moved to Manchester for a girl, which, you know, it was a good and also bad decision. But then through that, I was made redundant. We broke up, and I was just kind of left in a city where I didn't know anybody. And that was when I started to kind of push myself into the kind of like creative side, to going to shows, doing photography, just being involved in a scene that I was a fan of. And I was like, well, this is my chance to now take those steps and move myself forward in this kind of world that I want to do. And it, like, I met people that kind of had already been doing it for a while, and it was encouraging. And it kind of just slowly kind of builds from there. There's a lot of things that have happened. Like I had a job that I hated, but I kind of did it because it was an opportunity to do the touring. You'd have to book your holiday weeks in advance, which never kind of really worked. And I feel like openly, I can say this now, times when I called in sick, it was a lie. But they were like, you'd have to book holiday in to do a tour. And I was like, this, like, if you don't get it approved, you can't do the work and things. And it was just like this awful mindset. And it just got to the point where I was like, I've got to quit. Like, there's no way I can continue, like, you know, doing like a Monday shift and then coming, you know, doing a show Tuesday night and coming in Wednesday morning to open and that kind of, like, I was like, I can't do this. And
what was the first thing that you went on after you'd quit?
It was a little kind of like, it was a UK tour with Light You Up, who don't exist anymore. They
were good though.
Awesome. They were doing a, like, Decade had a headline tour, and we went on the UK with them. And I had another tour lined up directly after that. Like, I'd finished the one show and I'd have to like travel from the one city to another city, and I'd join another tour. But then which is why ultimately I quit my job, because I couldn't have had the time to do it all. But then while I was on that first one, the second one canned me. They were like, oh, we can't bring you along. And I was like, I've quit my job for this.
Oh, no.
But
shit.
So I came back a lot earlier than I anticipated, but also like with no work to go to. So that kicked my ass in making me realize that like I've got to make sure I've got to work at this. I can't just kind of hope that coast through and it's okay, it's going to be a breeze. If I've quit my actual full-time, 35 hours a week job, I've got to make sure that this pays off.
Yeah.
Doing it
so
legit.
Wait, you said earlier on, it's quite interesting, is your mantra about hope.
Yeah.
Okay. One of my ones is don't hope for it, work for it. And I think you just like knock that one on the head.
It's like there's definitely like I've done some awful tours. I've done some like the main thing is like I'm very lucky. I'm very aware that like the situation I'm in now, not everybody gets to do on some level as a band, some like as kind of touring people. But like as I'm thinking about it, it sounds obnoxious. I'm currently in a situation where I get to tour on a bus, which I never thought I'd be able to do. And it's been like that for the last kind of like 2 years, which is madness. But then when I think about it, I've done tours where all 3 bands on the tour stayed in the same house. And because I was the last one out of the van, I didn't get any floor space. So I had to sleep sitting upright in a leather armchair in someone's living room. So like when I think of oh, I get to tour on a bus now, I also then go, but there was a point where I had to sleep in a van because we were in some kind of like squat where everyone else was staying. I can't live like this. So there's this weird kind of, it's like I've done shitty tours. And I would do them again if the opportunity came up. And if it was fun, I'd do it again.
You've put the legwork in. And now you feel like you've earned the right to be on a bus because you've
occasionally I do feel like a fraud. And I'm like, someone's going to come up to me and go, hey, we kind of made a mistake.
We know who you are.
You can just go home if you like. I'll be like, all right, thanks guys. I made it this far. I appreciate it. Just let me get my bags and I'll be out of your way.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Because I don't drink. I don't kind of enjoy the tour as other people do. I'm just kind of very grateful for the opportunities. Like I've been lucky enough to go to places I never thought I'd get to go to, and I've been there multiple times now, which is insane. Like I can go to a city and know my way around without having to use maps and things. I'm always, every time I get to go somewhere, every time I get another tour, I'm always grateful. I'm always aware like how lucky I am that this opportunity's come up again. I get to go, I get to go and do my work somewhere else again.
Perhaps it's because you're going sober as well. Because like when we and Jack went to New York, we got so drunk we didn't have a fucking clue where we were.
This is the thing. I've worked it out. It's been like 18 years or something now that I haven't drunk. And I think, I don't want to say that like if I did, like that's integral to like how I've kind of progressed myself. But like when you look at the situation, like I'm there to work. I'm not there to party. I'm not there to sort of, take advantage of the rider and things like that. Like I'm there to work. And like, I'm not saying that like that's integral to how, like why it's worked and things like that. But for me, I look at it as a situation where like I'm here, I'm in this group of people because I'm here to work with them and not kind of, some people turn up and they tag along for a couple of days and they're knee deep in the free booze that's around. And you just kind of think that like, I don't know, I just couldn't live like that. I couldn't kind of adjust to that sort of lifestyle. It's not even
like I have 2 beers now in isolation and I'm a bit peaky in the morning.
Getting old now, that's what it is.
It's not a sustainable lifestyle.
I know, yeah. No.
I don't think it's a sustainable lifestyle for most, being on the road and drinking all the time and like having that like backstage attitude. Like it's the weird because like
rock and roll.
Everyone, but it's so exciting. Oh, you're backstage. What's it like backstage? You're like, it's a group of men trying to get the Wi-Fi password to work and then working out where the nearest Starbucks is and what people are doing for dinner. Like, that's what it's like. oh, but it's so exciting. You're like, not really. Like, is this an 8 or a B? Can you get the password to work? Like, that's what it is. That's what backstage is. It's the weirdest thing. Oh, but it's so exciting. You're like, it is, but it's also surprisingly normal. It's this idea that like it's rock and roll, isn't it? It's like TVs out of hotel windows and stuff, and you're like, no, couldn't be further from the truth.
I remember like being on tour with Attack Attack, and we ended up. We were in King's College in London, and one of the best things I saw backstage was Josh's nan from UB86 came in to see us, have a chat with us. It's like the most un-rock and roll thing ever. It was great. It was like,
but it is that kind of perception that it's wild, it's madness. Oh, you're a touring band, it's crazy. You're like, it's really not. Like, people don't make a soundcheck, and then someone's got to try and find out where the nearest ramen place is, and like, that's all it is. It's so strangely normal.
There's a lot of like searching. I remember being on tour for like the 2 months. I think it was like 3 months of the 4 years I was in a band. I actually toured. And like 2 months, like it was with Jeffree Star and Broken Side. And it was literally just sat around in a bus waiting for the venue to open, loading in. Like, I think the most rock and roll thing was like, Birder threw my shoe over a fence. Like, it was just like, we were playing to like 500-600 people a night for like 2 months. I think it was something stupid like that. It was really good. I'm not saying it wasn't fun, but we were so tired after the show, we wouldn't have time for beers because we'd have to drive to the next place, and we didn't have our own driver. So it was, it's not all rock and roll. So, but I guess you're on a different level though.
Gav, once when I met you, we had a chat about your tattoos, because they're a big thing for you, right?
Yes.
And there's one tattoo on your arm which is drawn by someone. Could you explain that story for me?
Yeah, it's also my least favorite tattoo now as well. Not for the reasons you would think it is my least favorite, but just other elements. So I worked for a radio station in Cardiff when I was like 18, and had like artists would come in and they'd be interviewed for the show, and they do like, you know, acoustic things or whatever. I feel bad, like even saying their name, it's bizarre. So the Lost Prophets came in for an interview. And this was at like the peak of like Burn had just come out, Last Train Home. They were huge. And they were like in the boardroom, and they were drawn on the flip chart things and stuff like that. So they, Jamie, who was the keyboard guy, drew this kind of thing up. And they like, the people in the radio station knew I was a fan, so they kept the piece of paper for me. And I have no idea where it is at this point in my life. It is long gone. But he drew this kind of weird little character, sort of wearing an eye patch and a little kind of hat, skulls in her hair. And I was like, this is amazing. I love this. And then through a very interesting time in my life when I was living in Manchester, decided to go out and get it tattooed, along with like my girlfriend at the time's name, which I still have on me now, which we don't talk about.
Oh my God.
But, like I said, it was an interesting time in my life. But I've got this character on my left forearm. And then just assumed it was just a character that came from this kind of hanging out drawing thing. Didn't think anything of it, and then found out later on it's a character from a graphic novel. And it just kind of, and then obviously as time progresses, different things happen, and it's now not like it's all black, and I can't really cover it up, and it just kind of sits there on my arm. Very.
You've had it covered up?
No, it's all black, so it's very difficult to cover up. It's very black, so, it's very big.
reason being that I asked, probably saw me drawing at the start, if you're ever down our way, you want to get anything done, while I've been sat drawn to you, I drew you a little skull for a little gap filler to cheer you up, because I know that story and I know how much you hate that. So when you want me to do some stuff on your arm, if you want me to cover that up, I will. And I'll do it for free.
For it. I don't even know what I would do with it at this point.
We'll sort out some...
very greatly appreciated.
And we'll I don't know, sort out some photography as a swap, and we'll go back to question number 4, collaborating with people.
Trade.
Number 2, we'll trade it. We'll do it that way.
Well, I was going to say that, like, it came up, it was yesterday or the day before, it came up in my Facebook memories that it was 7 years ago that we were down shooting the Scream the Headlines video.
At my farm. Yes.
Yeah, in the barn. And that truly upset me that it was 7 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot all about that. We had like the lobster cage wall.
Pots. And then they trashed the caravan and I had to clean it up the day after.
That was
so rock and roll.
That's the side that people don't see. You got to trash it up, but someone's got to clean
it. Is there anybody that you know that you would be interested in showing them the podcast to see if they'd like to come on as a guest?
100%.
Is there anybody that you would like to hear these questions asked to? That would be available.
Oh, everyone's available at the moment, though, aren't they?
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah.
There's a couple of people actually. I think I don't know how I would go about it. But like the guys from the Glorious Sons are off as currently, and I know that.
Yeah.
So the two of the guys are brothers. Brett, who is the singer, and Jay, who is guitar. They're both brothers, and I know that before it all started, Jay had a construction company, which is how he met Adam, who's the drummer, and also Chris, who plays bass. And it just kind of, that grew from a point of like non-music to where it is now.
Yeah.
But I don't know how I could text them. I could see what would happen. But like, that'd be interesting to kind of hear an international aspect of, because like I felt like we obviously know each other. So, and we kind of came up through, I'd say the same environment also, like shows at Barfly and kind of Welsh Club and stuff like that. Kind of, we came up through the same route. It'd be interesting to kind of hear like an international aspect of it, maybe.
Well, we just did podcast with Ian from Long Island in New York, and his upbringing is incredible. Like if you get a chance to listen to that,
it's a different world. This is the strangest thing. Like you think it would be so similar, but it's strange how a scene so kind of closely knitted is so different depending on where you're from.
And it's insane because he was like talking to us. He was like, "Oh yeah, the guy I tattooed with was a guy that was the guitarist for Alice Cooper at one point." It was just like, what the fuck? That's fucking massive.
But it's like the most normal thing.
Yeah. Incredible. So do you want to plug your social media a minute, Gav? Like,
yes, please do.
I only really have my main thing, which I need to post on more often, is my Instagram, I think, which is @GavFrontRow.
Thanks for your time, Gav. I really appreciate it.
I probably haven't shut up for like an hour and a half, but
that's the whole point of it. It's getting to know who you are and what you've done and how you've come to where you are today.
It's been fun, man. I've really enjoyed it.
Thanks. Yeah, like really though, man. Thank you very much for having a chat with us. I've really enjoyed having a chat to you. Like,
guys, this has been awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. It's nice.
Thanks for even asking. I've genuinely enjoyed this.
I'd be scared if you didn't genuinely enjoy it.
Yeah, cheers, guys. It was all right.
We will speak to you soon. Look after yourself.
I'm off to wash my hands.
Safe.
You can keep in touch, dude.
Thank you, boys.
I feel dirty talking to you.
See you in a bit. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Progression Over Destination. We hope you found some inspiration in this to put yourself out there and have hope in anything that you do. Don't forget that you can check out the show notes on www.progressionoverdestination.co.uk. And if you enjoyed, please leave us a message on any of our socials. Our handle is @progressionoverdestination. See you next time with Johnny Williams from Boombox.